Sure. Well, you skipped right to it, which was that I was a little bit lost in my mid 20s. But starting out, you know how sometimes when you're a kid, depending on, what your interests are and stuff, you're often told, like, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to study hard in school. You should go to college because, that's what you should do. And then you should get a good steady job afterwards. And I was on that path for much of my life. I was pretty academic and wasn't great at sports. So school was my jam. And I, tried as hard as I could to get into a good university and then to have a major that I was excited about. And then I was going to do all these things, check all these boxes. And I kind of, partway through college, I was like, wait, actually, I'm going to study liberal arts. I'm going to get a political science degree. What do you do with that? I wasn't somebody who was necessarily going to go be a doctor or go to law school or get a graduate degree. So I was like, I'm really passionate about public service. That was what I loved, and politics and government, and wanted to do something like that. So I convinced myself that this was my path because I had to have, and I did it. And I worked for a nonprofit for my first year after I graduated in New York City. And then I moved to DC for 2 years and I took a research assistant job at the World Bank. And I was like, this is the coolest thing if you are a young person studying political science, getting to be at DC, getting to be at an international organization like the bank. And honestly, I hated it. So that was really when I started to reassess, for the first 24 years of my life, 25 years of my life, I thought if I just did all these things well and right, it would kind of take me to the next step, and I just kept progressing. And then suddenly I found myself in the middle of it being like, waking up doesn't bring me joy. I want a job that makes me, I was also pretty naive then, but I want a job that makes me excited to get up every single morning because I wanted my job to define so much of who I was and the value that I put on myself.
What internal sort of revelation came to you to realize maybe this isn't the end all? Maybe going from a magical career or a really great place like a World Bank may not be what's for me.
I think it had to do with how I felt every day when I woke up and how I felt every day when I was in the office. It felt very monotonous, and I would dread getting up and going to work. And I felt like this is one of my first jobs out of college. I'm only, 23, 24. What is the rest of my life going to be? At this young age, work is already bringing me down so much. And it wasn't a bad place. The people I worked with were lovely, but it kind of felt, it's not exactly what I did, but it kind of felt like pushing paper around each day. Push it a little bit this way, someone else pushes it a little bit this way, like the bureaucracy, if you will. And it just felt like I wasn't making a difference. It was like I was, a mouse in a wheel, just kind of running in circles.
Okay, so that mouse eventually finds some cheese somewhere and says, you know what? I think I'm going to be into more of a consumer-based business, which is Leatherology, which for those folks who don't know, would you explain what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm one of the co-founders of Leatherology.com. I run it with my brother. We are based in Dallas, Texas. I'm from Texas, and I left to live on the East Coast in New York and DC for over a decade. I never thought I would come home, but I did. And it is actually fabulous. Like you said you were in South Carolina. It's great, being somewhere else. I just feel like I have so much more balance in my life. But what we do is we sell really beautifully crafted, personalizable leather accessories that you can put your own touch on, whether that's a debossed monogram, hand-painted initials, this thing that we call punto raised letters. And all of our designs are very, very classic, minimally branded, really meant to be high quality, stand the test of time. And we're direct to consumer, so we don't have a wholesale markup. And that keeps the price really accessible while the quality is still really high.
How did you evolve into that sort of business line? And obviously that must light your fire. So tell me about that.
So the journey was not straight, which is, I think, what you're getting at.